My dear fellow listeners and viewers, good evening once again, and welcome to another edition of the Dr. Narine Dat Show. For those of you who have been watching us and viewing us and listening to us and whatnot, you will know that the Dr. Narine Dat Show is a safe space for positive energy only. It is very different than what we have done in the past with the Let's Chit Chat with Narine Dat. Every week, we have amazing guests joining us where we talk about amazing things in a very safe manner. Tonight is no different. We have a young man who is very talented in what he does, has a passion for community work, and has done so much at an early age, despite the fact that he had obviously, just like many of us, lots of challenges in his life, but none of that hold him back from moving forward. Tonight, it is my honor to introduce to you our guest, Tanner. Tanner, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for joining the show here. You obviously were on a roll show. Let's chit chat with Narine Dat, and here you are on the Dr. Narine Dat show. So what we are going to do, we want to be mindful that everybody has busy lives, everybody has lots of things happening. I'm going to let you take it away and introduce yourself to us, and then we are going to get into, dive into things in terms of where you're at, where you're heading, and we obviously will talk about all of your accomplishments and things of that sort. So take it away, introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Dr. Sukram. So, for those of you that are just listening, my name is Tanner Bergsma. I am 22 years old. I grew up in this town called Stratford, Ontario, and I ended up finishing my high school diploma with honors at Stratford Central Secondary School, and now I am a community psychology student at Wilfrid Laurier University, where I continue to try to further educate myself to help promote positive change in this world.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction there. So obviously you have achieved a lot in your life, but these things were not easy for you. Um, and I'm excited to share these pieces, obviously, with our viewers, listeners, and so forth. But before we do all of that, right, I want people to know that sometimes in life, we have to step back a little bit, and sometimes in life, we have to remind ourselves that none of us will always be successful at our very first try, and you know that so very well. Take me back to your journey when you were a young individual growing up to school. What was your journey like going to school? It doesn't have to be all bad, but take us back to your earlier years in grade school, all of that. And we'll get into the other community stuff later on.
Okay. So, when I was a child, I was taken away from my biological parents, so I was adopted finally at around 5 years old. And practically throughout my childhood, I had a fairly good life for the most part. I did have a lot of challenges though when it came down to school and stuff like that because of the fact that I was autistic and I didn't know it. So it brought a lot of challenges, especially when it came down to societal norms, not knowing what was appropriate versus not appropriate in society and stuff like that. So I had resulted in a lot of bullying, which further affected my self-esteem as a kid. On top of that, I had situations going on at home that was not great. And like many kids, subject to various amounts of things that no child should have to endure. Now, at that time, I did not know how to cope well, and my way of coping was to avoid. And so I found myself often finding myself escaping and work in high school, specifically into my studies. That's how I used to cope with a lot of that. And that really made me an outsider. So things were not easy. And although better now, I look back and I look at why were these things happening. Things happen for a reason all the time, right? So that's kind of a summary of what kind of happened in my kind of childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Tanner. I want to remind you as well that this is a safe space here, so just be you, right? You're doing really, really well. I want to get right into it in terms of your challenges, in terms of being homeless, and you are very we are going to get into obviously your successes and so forth, but I want people to know that you have really done well in terms of getting to where you are right now, and I'm very proud of you. You know that. You were homeless at one point for a few years. Tell us about that. Tell us about the experience. Tell us, how, some of the difficulties. As you know, part of my role previously, collecting data when it comes to all of these homeless species and so forth. So I understand, bits and pieces of things. But I want to hear of your personal experience in terms of when you had nobody else to turn to and you were basically on the street. Tell us about that experience.
Well, being on the streets is never easy. I ran away because of the abuse and stuff going on, and as a kid, I didn't find out I was adopted until I was 17. So I had a lot of trauma that I never dealt with. And so I walked, at the time, I walked from Stratford all the way down to New Hamburg, so down by the Nofro. So that was about 35, 36 kilometers of walking that I did at night, trying to pursue my post-secondary education. I was not really in the right frame of mindset because when you are involved in trauma with things, you don't always think things through. So I had a lot of naivety towards the world in some ways, and that brought a lot of danger that I was not exposed to. So I hitchhiked from there to Kitchener, and I was on the streets for a good time. I was outside in temperatures that were below freezing some nights, out on the concrete on the sidewalk, and I had nothing. I came to Waterloo Region with a pair of flip-flops, a t-shirt, and jeans. That's it. And I was running into people who pretended to be my friend. Meanwhile, they were stabbing me in the back. Meanwhile, they were treating me like I was some object. And when you're a kid who doesn't really know the dangers of society and tries to believe that everyone is good and stuff like that, it proposes dangers. I was raped multiple times. I was seeing people dying because of mental health struggles and because of greed. And this did a lot of trauma. And so after being robbed, jumped, and stolen for many amounts of times, I ran into somebody who thankfully was able to help direct me to a local shelter in Kitchener. So I stayed there for a little bit, and that came off with all this other types of challenges, because at a youth shelter, what many don't understand is that you are exposed to a different type of environment. It's not the way that most society thinks it is, and most people are not homeless because they want to be homeless. And so I was hearing these stories. I was seeing people using narcotics and drugs and things like that. And knowing me, I'm trying to help them. Meanwhile, I am not dealing with my own stuff. And all that got me was being used and being more subjected to further trauma and further abuse that was going on. And so I learned very quickly that the streets was not a safe place for people like myself. And it was not a point where I could trust anyone, because even some of your best friends turn around and stab you in the back. And so after a while of people trying to survive, it affects you. And at the time, many people were turning to street gangs and stuff to even try to survive, and doing things within there to do that. And I was getting myself wrapped up in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I was luckily able to sneak my way out of it many times, but it didn't come out without its consequences. I almost lost my life multiple times. And so it's a situation, being homeless, where when you're at your lowest of low, and when people do not understand your situation, and then they're so quick to judge a person based off of being homeless rather than understanding their story behind that, it affects the human soul to the point where you don't even feel like you're human anymore. You're feeling like a ravaged animal, right? And so that tore through me like knives for many years. And seeing people struggle with the same thing, and then seeing people lose their life. Like, I had a person who ended up committing suicide because of all this. And I had other people that literally overdosed, that I've had a Narcan and stuff like that, right? So these are all things, and drinking and stuff. And when I lost my daughter 2.5 years ago, I was homeless then, and I was drinking and stuff like that because that's the way I learned how to cope. And I was going further and further down that spiral to the point where I was trying to end my life myself many times. And so it's, as you can see, it's I went from an honor student and somewhat managing to completely falling apart, completely losing it. And I never thought I never thought that I could get out of it, because when you have so many people degrading you all the time, so many people telling you that you're not worth it, so many people telling you that you're not even morally human in a matter of sense, it's like every single bit of your being, you don't even feel like yourself anymore. You don't even know who you are. And so those, even though, are some of the struggles, and no one can really understand unless if they've been through it. But it's not what people think. And I think that there needs to be more awareness of it. I hope that answers that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tanner, for sharing that piece of your story. I want to remind you again that, I'm so proud of you to watch your growth over the years. You've done so well, and I know that we wouldn't be able to capture everything, within, our time slot for the show here. But whatever, you share here, I want to know that you're making an impact because you're sharing, your story, and you're giving hope to folks who think that, hey, they cannot make it, because as you mentioned earlier, it is not easy out there, right? I want to remind my viewers and listeners that there are a few different ways to listen to us, and that's the Dr. Narine Dat Show. You can listen to us on 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers Digital Cable for those of you who have the Rogers Digital Box. And of course, we also live stream our show here, so please take the opportunity to share our page. I'm joined tonight by a young man, Tanner Bergsma, who lives, in Ontario here. I've known him now for a few years. He, obviously over the years had a lot of struggles, as he was sharing earlier. But the good thing with him is that he didn't allow any of that to hold him back. And the pieces that he's going to share, later on, the second half of the show, that is, you wouldn't want to miss it. You want to stay tuned for the whole thing. So, Tanner, before we get into all of your successes and all of that, you're also um, a published author and all of that. Before we get into all of that, what was the hardest thing for you being on the street and not knowing, of what the future holds for you, right? Because in a moment, things can be challenging, right?
Hmm. There are multiple different things, but I think the most challenging part of that is not having the right support network, but the judgment that comes with being homeless. And can you still hear me?
Yes, I can still hear you. You go ahead. Yeah.
You froze for a minute. Um, I think the judgment is probably the most hardest thing because you see, I can navigate. I can deal with. I can deal with going through physical pain, going through physical scars, so to speak, in life. I can deal with that. But what cuts more than being physically hurt is the mental turmoil that a person can put you through. And I was treated like I was scum. I was treated like I was some sort of person that I wasn't. I was treated like I was not, literally not even human. Like I was some sort of criminal, like I was some sort of, and I never would do anything wrong. But people would not take the time to understand me. People would to be quick to judge. And as a teenager, when you're homeless and you have no support networks and you don't feel like you have people who understand you and you don't know that you're autistic, you struggle with those struggles on its own, and people keep spitting on you. You're dealing with the death of your daughter. You're dealing with all of these things. That is what led to a huge decline in my mental health. I never thought I could make it out of it because of the fact of what people continued to do. If people understood and took the time to understand, then then I would have been able to climb out a lot quicker and probably with a lot less trauma. But it's only made me stronger. And so I think, to summarize, people need to listen first and judge less.
Thank you so much for that. So obviously you are in a better place right now, which is awesome, and we're gonna get into all of that slowly. But what was the one motivating factor, or what was the one thing that really gave you that edge in terms of saying, "Hey, look, I can do better than this. I don't belong here." There has to be something. There has to be somebody to rescue you, or there had to be some sort of inner voice that says to you, "Look, Tanner, you know what? Look, I don't belong here." Right? When I say belong, meaning in the situation you're in, that I deserve better for myself. Share that with us.
There's a few things. Um, the number one thing is that my faith, and like I'm a Christian. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you nice and clear. You continue on, yeah?
I would say the number one thing would be my faith. I believed in many times that I would ask God, why are you abandoning me? Why are you hurting me? Why are you, when I'm struggling in the worst moments of my life, that you are leaving me? Because all I felt like I was doing was trying to help others. And the most key turning points in my life were when there was multiple times where I tried to attempt suicide and it never really worked. There would always be some divine intervention. One of them, which is most prominent in my mind, is when I met my church. I was saying my goodbyes on Facebook, sending off my, like, I'm ending it, I'm done. And I was ready to shut it down. And a message from a missionary at my church. And she asked me to go to church, and I thought I was going out on a date with a woman at a church. So here I am thinking I am going to, I am, maybe God had something new in store for me, and I didn't know it. But slowly and surely, that was the most prominent thing that I can remember. That was the turnaround point for me. But as far as what kept me going, I knew that my life was bigger than what was happening. I knew that when I was seeing other people suffer, it angered me. And it angered me to the point where I used that anger as fuel to build my determination to get out of where I was. There was moments where I would slip back. There was moments where I was drinking to end my life. There was moments where I just wanted to end it all. But if I did that, they would win. If I did that, the people that ended their life, their deaths would be in vain. And so I carry that burden. I still carry it very, very heavily on me. There's many times I've attended funerals and stuff like that of former friends who could navigate the challenge of mental health. That couldn't navigate the homelessness. So I would think, because of what I saw, because of what I've been through, because I see, for me, it's one thing, in my life, I always believe, like, I'm not in this life for myself. I'm here on this life to help other people. And, I still struggle with self-worth some days, but to summarize, it's the fight for seeing the world a better place and seeing that the world can come together in unity and standing up for the people that are being treated unfairly. That really keeps me going.
All right. Thank you so much, Tanner. I'm glad that you took up the offer, because it basically gave you the opportunity to be a better version of you, which is awesome. Let's talk a little bit about your academic journey. I mean, it can be hard because you try to balance so many things, right? Because you're very much engaged in the community. You do so many different things. So let's, break it down a little bit. Let's talk about your academic journey. Tell us about the program that you are in right now and what motivated you to take that specific program. Take it away.
It's good. So I am currently in my third year at Wilfrid Laurier University for psychology, but I'm specializing in community psychology. Community psychology is a study of how the world got to where it is. How did we get to where we are, and what can we do now differently to help make a better change in this world? I believe that the root of these issues in our society do not stem from current politicians. It does not stem from current struggles. It stems from multitude amount of centuries ago, where we have been taught that greed, capitalism, control, power is the good thing, and that people's lives do not matter. And over centuries, we have learned those things, and we're slowly starting to adapt. But in doing so, we are further dividing in some ways. And I think I have a key, and I'm trying to figure out the key solution that will help bring the world together as one. John Lennon was not far off when he said, imagine a world where we could come together, right? And I believe that day will come, and I'm determined to find that answer. And so part of that will be understanding how we got to where we are. How does humanity think about specific issues in our society, and how does that relate to both personal experiences and understanding my personal experiences, but also understanding what other people have been through? How and why are people reacting the way that they are, right? And so I want to understand it. I want I want to take it all in. You know, somebody is not just born evil, for example, or do bad things. They are characterized and learned, usually those behaviors. Sometimes it's genetic, but most of the time it's learned behavior. And how does that, you know, where does that come from? So my education, I am going to be pursuing my master's and my PhD in community psychology. And once I have a very thorough understanding, and I have done some case studies and some research, and I published my theses and stuff like that on these issues, I'm going to be going on and getting my law degree as a human rights lawyer. And so my goal is to be able to take and uphold justice for the people around the globe. And one day, when I have enough experience and I have the educational background to help back me, I will be running for the Prime Minister of Canada. I do believe that people, in order to understand and help fix a country, you need to understand and walk through other people's shoes. You need to be understanding why we are where we are. It is not as simple as just saying somebody is an idiot, for example, excuse my language, when we don't understand their story. We don't understand who they learned that from. We don't understand what causes and triggers that may be caused from. So everything has a cause and effect. That's what we call a correlation coefficient response. So understanding those things is what drives me to want to learn to make the world a better place, right? And so I'm trying to, many activists around the world try to specialize in environmentalism or specialize in human rights, or specialize in a specific group of activism, where I am trying to get to the root of the issue to stop everything. And I believe that it comes down to a history of greed, power, and control, and the ability of learned behavior to the point where we as a society are being taught these things and we're not learning how to undo them. We have cultural biases that play an effect. So my education, I am trying to understand these things. I'm trying to learn, and using my background experiences and understanding my history, understanding those people, understanding the history, I can help bring the community together with the help of the people. So that is my ultimate goal. And I know it seems far-fetched, but I do believe that I have what it takes. And I think that we can't find a solution for a problem without understanding the cause first.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tanner. I mean, I know you, of course, and you have always been passionate about, social justice work, advocacy work, fairness, equity, all of these important pieces, which is awesome. Do you see yourself? I know you kind of mentioned something about in relation to the political line. Do you see yourself running for any sort of local seat like city council and regional council, anything along that line?
So yes, I do. I currently sit as the chairman of the Kitchener 2051 Community Working Group. So I am tasked with the responsibility of being able to help rewrite the official plan of the city of Kitchener. And that will encompass a multitude amount of things, but it really, an official plan affects how a city's bylaws function. It will affect the complete structure of a way that a society or a city is built. And so a society or a city cannot be built without an official plan. It's like your foundation of how a society or a city functions. So I currently am sitting as the chair of that group, and I am currently working with multitude amount of city staff as well as political individuals to help create a common solution to help fix some of the crises that are going in our society. In 2029, in the federal election next time, I plan to be running for MP. I have a lot of work to get there, but in between my time and understanding where we are at. And I think that with my experiences and with my education at that point, I will be able to represent my community with the most efficient, with the most passion and efficiency. And like, I go above and beyond in everything that I do. So yes, I do plan to. Eventually, in the long term, I will be running, as I said, hopefully for prime minister after I have some experiences and skill sets in my under my belt. Now, life can take me many different ways, and I keep my minds open to those things. But yes, I do. And I do think that in order to make change, you have to be going into positions of power to do so in some ways. And in some ways, you don't need to. But for me, I think I don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I don't want to be. I think it's time that we get rid of any corrupt politician that is in government. We need to have a government that's based for the people. We need to have MPs that are going to be representing their and voting based off of what their constituents want. And I intend to provide that for the people. And so, yes, I do plan to, and I will keep you guys updated on how that goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tanner. Very much appreciated. My dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who may have just tuned in, you are watching and listening to Dr. Narine Dat Show. Keep in mind there are a few different ways to listen to us. You can listen to us on the regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers Digital Cable, for those of you who have the Rogers Digital box. And of course, we are also live streamer Dr. Narine Dat Show. I keep saying the chat because we've been doing it for several years every day. So it will take me a while to kind of get used to the new branding of the Dr. Narine Dat Show. So please take the opportunity to share our page. We will honor that, that's for sure. Our guest, as I was mentioning earlier, is Tanner Bergsma, who is a very, strong advocate and very, community-minded and wanting to see positive change in our society. He has done a lot of great work, despite the fact that he is only 22 years old. I want to talk a little bit about some of your advocacy work, but more importantly, I want to talk about your book. Tell us a little bit about the book. What motivated you to put together the book? Share with us the title of the book, all of those beautiful things.
Sounds good. So my book is called Finding the Light Within, Charting a Path to Resilience. I also co-authored an international best-selling book called Rebirth. I have to go back and look.
That's okay. That's okay.
Rebirth: Stories of Unyielding Courage from Darkness to Dawn, Volume 1. So that's an international movement for helping to overcome adversity and stuff. I have not announced that to the public until now. So congratulations on that. I will have a self-published version of it coming out within the next couple months, which I could not be more excited for. I got started into writing about my journey because even though I'm 22 years old, I have figured already a lot out in life. I have been through a lot more than some people that are double or triple my age have in their lifetime. And so I wanted to say, you know what? There's other people that are struggling like me. There's other people who cannot find the inner light. I have the key to helping them through it because I've unlocked the gates. I've unlocked those doors. I've unlocked the principles to get to that next level. And knowing that I have that experience and that knowledge and that wisdom, I want to share it with those that are struggling so that they can navigate a system that is not meant to stand up for them. And so this book, Finding the Light Within, it talks about my journey from homelessness to being an international award-winning author and TEDx speaker. I talk about my journey. I talk about the lessons I've learned in my book. I've talked about some of the things that I've went through. It's, I don't get into everything, but I want people to get a general idea of the fact that we have choices in life, and despite all the hardships, despite whatever you're going through, like losing a kid is one of the most hardest things I've had to go through. Being homeless and being everything that I've been through and seeing people ending their life and dying that's hard. And dealing with an alcohol problem and everything else. But I beat it. And I can sit here today and I can confidently say that I have that key. And if I have that key to make a world a better place, I want to share that with others. I don't have all the answers in life. I don't know everything. I'm still fairly young. But what I do have is wisdom. I have knowledge on how to overcome. And I want to share that. And that's why I helped co-author the international book, Rebirth, which is led by Lima McLean. And she is an amazing individual. And I gathered with 15 other international authors around the world, and we put together this book as the original authors of this series to help people to share stories of overcoming adversity, to learn how to overcome it. And I think that this is a beautiful thing. I think with more unity, if people learn to set their differences aside and look at how can we become better as people, and learn to not look at other people's weaknesses as weaknesses, but people's weaknesses as stories of pain, but also of stories of courage and wisdom to be able to overcome what they're going through in life, then I think we can make the world a better place. And that's what I intend to do. That's why I did what I did. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful piece of story. Thank you so much. And I want to give this feedback as well too. I can see your growth. Obviously, I've seen your growth off the camera. I've seen the work, that you've been doing, but I have to tell you, even the way you present yourself, it is a total growth. I take it as a compliment there. Like, you're doing so well. I'm very proud of you, so that's
I
awesome.
agree.
And I can't wait to continue, to watch your growth as you kind of carry on with so many, wonderful project you are working on, which is awesome. As you was sharing earlier, though, you share some of your challenges, that you had to face, when you were homeless and all of these types of things. Despite all of that, though, there are things, we can look back, right, and be grateful for. What are some of the things Tanner is grateful for, despite the fact that he had some challenges over the years?
Great question. And I'm gonna answer that with a question and an answer. Many people have asked me, including my mother. She's been through a lot too, God bless her soul. But my adoptive mother used to ask me, if you were to go back in life, would you change anything? And I always keep saying no. Now, because she got out of an abusive relationship, she's saying otherwise. If I were to go back in time, I'd do everything differently. But for me, God bless her soul, she's a strong human being. I am, and I wouldn't go back in time to change anything. I am grateful for having the experience, and despite everything that I lost, despite everything that I went through, I am grateful for knowledge. I'm grateful for the wisdom that I've learned throughout the time to put myself in a place to understand and empathize towards the Canadian people and the people around the globe. People have struggles all the time. And I was somebody who sometimes made some unfortunate life decisions or was exposed to things that were not my fault, but it was just the reality. And I had to go through the lessons from it. It wasn't easy. It came at a great price, absolutely. But money means nothing. Things mean nothing. And in this life, I can tell you that we come into this world with nothing and we leave with nothing. And I can be thankful for the fact that I went through everything that I did, because it gives me an ability to feel that anger, to use it towards as motivation, to help bring people together. And that, and knowing the ability of what I have, and knowing that knowledge of understanding and being grateful for the fact that I've been taught what life's true purpose is, there's nothing I would trade to go back in time and do that. I would not go back in time to redo anything. Am I empathetic? Have I made mistakes? Absolutely. Have I hurt people along the way? Sure. We're all not perfect. But I wouldn't change a thing, because I am who I am because of what I went through. I am who I am because of my life struggles and the mistakes that I've made. And I am grateful for that knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Do not appreciate that. So obviously, none of us can do things on our own. I mean, and I'm going to explain it to you this way. Yes, we can stand alone, and you know my style. I will stand alone if I have to get things done, right? It's one of my motto. But ideally, if we have role models that we look up to and all of that, things can make a huge difference, right? Especially when we have a vision for ourselves and whatnot. Who are the people that you look up to so that you can use, those folks as a guide so that you can stay grounded and achieve the things that you want in your life?
Great question. And I'm not going to answer it in what most people would expect.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and I am thankful for Jesus Christ and God.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that God sends people into our life to help navigate us on our journey in this life. And whether or not I fully understand the picture today or tomorrow, He has a purpose. And He sends people in our life, such as yourself, you're one of them, who I truly admire and look up to. But I think I none of that can be done without God. And I don't ever force my religion on anyone, because God is love. Love is an action. And therefore, if you love other people, it's up to them to decide what they think that is. But in my opinion, if there is one person in this earth, or one individual, it would be Jesus Christ, and it would be God. Because I wouldn't have been able to make it through without them. I wouldn't have been able to navigate my life without understanding His purpose. So I know that's a bit unusual, but that is my belief.
No, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, right? And this is about you. This has nothing to do with anybody else. And so I'm glad that you're using the space, in ways that are of importance to you, right? So thank you so much for sharing your story here, and thank you for answering that question. So where do you see Tanner 5 years from now? You are 22 years old now. 5 years from now, you'll be 27. Where do you see yourself when you are at the age of 27? Sitting
I
in
see.
Parliament in Ottawa? Go ahead.
Maybe I see myself helping to unite people around the globe. I see myself. I'll be done my master's in community psychology at that point, and will continue to start my PhD. But I'm going to be continuing to fight for the people. I see myself continuing to spread the messages of what I've learned, as well as using my research and the knowledge that I have obtained over the years through both education and personal experience, to help further stand for injustice and for global unity, and standing up against individuals like regional council right now, who decides to do what they want to do. I won't get into it. But I see myself being able to help stand for the people. And I think ultimately at the end of the day that I do see myself being able to run for parliament, and I do see myself as an MP. And I may not get there the first time or the second time, and that's okay. You know, my work, I don't need a position of power to be helping the people. I can be somebody who opens a door for somebody. I can be somebody who helps give somebody a helping hand. I can be somebody who is a man of honor and a man of integrity and a man of character, a man who stands and fights for what he knows is right, and standing up for those that have no voice or feel like they are not strong enough to fight for them. I will always continue to do that. That will never change. I see myself being able to do a lot more public speaking opportunities. I see myself being able to publish at least a good 4 other books in my time in the next 4 or 5 years. But more importantly, I see myself continuing to be a person that helps bring people together. And so whatever way that may mean, whatever opportunity that comes with that, and I believe in, you see an opportunity, you take it. I'm a very ambitious individual, but at the end of the day, who I am as a person will never change, and my goal in this life will never change. So yes, I mean, I hope that answers the question. I know that I'm kind of leading somewhat off topic, but I you know, it's in life, as I said, you know, we come into this world with nothing and we leave with nothing. When I lost my daughter, it was an eye-opener for me, because at my age, I shouldn't have had to go through that, but I did. I mean, it's life. But you'll learn what the true value of life is when you see people suffer like that. When you see injustice like that happen. When you see people suffering, you learn a thing or two. And I live this life in the moment, and I always will continue to help represent the people and bringing people together.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do know I appreciate you. I appreciate the fact that you are taking the time to, share your story, your journey on our show, the Dr. Narine Dat Show. That is very much appreciated. We are forever grateful. That's for sure. There are obviously people watching and will be watching at some point, right? Not everybody will be watching us live here. What is it that you have to say, or what advice do you have to the younger folks in particular, who are probably saying to themselves, oh my goodness, love, they cannot make ends meet and I cannot see myself out of this. As you would know, things have changed over the years as well too. It is expensive to live. Everything is expensive. Housing is an issue. All of these things we talk about this, off the camera, all of that. What advice do you have for them, to those folks who are going through a very, very challenging time right, and they're thinking, my goodness, like I can't get out of this.
There are 3 things. 1, just because life is tough, don't give up. Life is going to be full of obstacles. I am a living example. As a 22-year-old autistic individual, I was diagnosed with autism in December 2024. And I went through everything that I did, and I'm still standing, and look at where I am now. I know that you have it within you to navigate it, to build, to fight, because other people do not define your purpose. Other people don't define your worth. You, as a person, define that based off of who you choose to be. And I can tell you that don't be listening to other people. Believe in yourself. You may not see a clear pathway right now, but it's only a temporary thing. You take a look at the infinity symbol. I have a tattoo that has the infinity symbol and the semicolon. The semicolon means suicide survivor. But the infinity, it means 2 things. Life is forever, I think of it as life has forever its ups and its downs in life. And so just remember that at the end of the day, life will go on. But what you choose to do with your life today will affect the future generations tomorrow. And how do you want to be remembered by? What is, number 2, what is your legacy? What do you want to be remembered by? For me, I believe in what's something called a living legacy. We are what we choose to think and act. We are defined not by of things, but of who we stand for and what we stand for. And remember that in life, there is going to be many injustices that come along. You may not be able to control what the government does. You can't control what other people do. You can control how you choose to think and how you choose to act. Stephen Covey once said, you can either be proactive or reactive. The choice is yours. So let me ask you, what is your choice? What do you choose to do? Because at the end of the day, the world is not going to remember you by what you own. They're not going to remember you by what you had. They're going to remember you, what did you do? What were the choices that you made? Who did you stand for? What did you stand for? Number 3, at the end of the day, life is short. Never take life for granted. Things mean nothing in this world. And if you can understand that basic principle, you'll learn to find happiness within yourself. One of the practices that I do on a daily basis is I want you to take a mirror and I want you to look into the mirror and say to yourself, I love myself for exactly who I am. I use this for my clients all the time. And when you take a look in your mirror, I want you to jot down what you feel. And I want you to practice affirmations daily until you have learned to truly accept yourself and love yourself. Because, as I said, the world is going to go on. You know, my mother now used to say, she used to say, they can take everything from me, but they can't take away my integrity. And that is an important piece. You need to always remember that if you can learn how to find happiness within yourself, you won't need other things to happen. You don't need to be blaming other people. You don't need to be blaming the government. It's not their fault. It's not anyone's fault we are where we are. It's not the government's fault that the housing crisis is happening. It's learned behaviors that have happened perpetually over time that have caused them to learn the things that they have learned to do what they're doing now. Now, however, what they choose to do going forward based off of their intent defines their character, and that you can hold a responsibility for. But always remember at the end of the day that you have no control over what other people choose. So choose to react proactively. And remember to find happiness within yourself and love yourself.
Awesome. I like that. Thank you so much, Tanner. My dear fellow listeners and viewers, for those of you who have just tuned in, I just want to remind you that there are a few different ways to listen to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. You can listen to us on the regular dial, that's the radio, 102.7 CKMS FM. You can listen to us on Rogers digital cable for those of you who have the Rogers digital box. And of course, we're also live streaming the show here, so please take the opportunity to share a page. It is something, we definitely will appreciate. So thank you so much in advance for that. Our guest tonight is Tanner. He took, some time to share his journey with us in terms of the challenges. Obviously, he also took some time to share with us how he get out of poverty, so to speak, and get out of the homelessness. And he shared about all of the amazing work he's doing. Tanner, you and I know that you've done some, TED Talk and all of that. What was that journey like for you when you were speaking in front of a decent amount of audience, right? And people who were eager to hear what you had to say. What was that experience like for you, speaking in front of an amazing crowd?
I crave it. I mean, it's nerve-wracking. It's suspenseful. For me, as being somebody that is not really social, it is nervous as heck, but it's also that satisfying. I have a message that I know I need to convey. And knowing that people want to listen to the lessons that I have learned so I can share my wisdom, that is perhaps the most powerful thing and most powerful feeling that I could have ever had when I did that. And when I walked up on that stage, I did not know what I was up against. but I spoke with my heart. I spoke with the knowledge that I had. And when I got off that stage, I just remember feeling accomplished, but not in the accomplishment of titles, but the accomplishment of saying, I just made a change in somebody's life today. And that is the most good feeling that I could ever have. So yeah, I mean, it as somebody that's autistic, I mean, I definitely, I have moments I will look at a light instead, or I'll look at something to help ease my anxiety. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's a thrill in being able to speak, and share your knowledge with the world.
Awesome. So what we'll do, I want to take a few minutes to talk about some of the awards that you have received and so forth, and I will kind of take it from there. So, I mean, you've been, doing your thing. You've kind of lent a hand whenever, people need it, without even, looking back for something in return and so forth, which is a beautiful thing because a lot of people get stuck into that business mindset where everything is about money and all of that, right? You've mentioned earlier that money is not everything, right? Because money comes and
No.
goes. Not that we don't need money to survive because society is designed that way, but you do not make it your main focus, right? You're not focusing on that aspect, which is, I think, is a beautiful skill, a beautiful thing, right? Because sometimes people can get lost and then they're always unhappy because they never have enough, right? And having that kind of contentment, and accepting, where things are and whatnot, it can make a huge difference, right? That whole gratitude, the whole gratitude and peace and so forth. So tell us a little bit about the few awards that you've received, what they meant to you, what they were for, all of these things.
Sure. So my first real award was, oh God. So 2017, I was nominated for the Ontario Volunteer Service Award, to where I was helping already back then, dedicating my volunteer experience to the community. I was then nominated in 2020 for the Cooperators A Better Place for You Award, which was, I got the most volunteer hours out of any male graduate when I graduated. But more importantly, it was also somebody who stood for change and stood for making a difference. I was then going into recently, in the past 5 years or 2 years, 3 years, whatever, I was nominated for the Activision Community Award, thanks to Dr. Sukrem, for overcoming adversity and barriers of all odds. I was then also nominated for the Enactus Spirit Award, which is an award that embodies the spirit of Enactus and representing meaningful change to the community and standing for social action and justice. And very recently, I was nominated for the 2025 Kitchener Youth Action Council Youth Award for Social Action and Justice. All of these awards, to be honest with you, they show me that I'm making progress. To me, it's never about awards because I don't do it for awards. I do it because this is my calling. Before I pass away, before I move on in my lifetime, I know what my mission here is. To me, it feels good to be recognized for the work that I do because it shows me that people are listening and that my work is not going in vain. So it feels good. But I don't do it for awards. I don't do it for anything. There's a lot of things that I continue to do on a daily basis that I don't tell people because I don't need to. Why? Because I'm in this life to make a world a better place, and that is who I am. So I am forever grateful for the nominees who have nominated me, and it feels I couldn't have done it without you guys, so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And know that I will never further give up, and I will always continue fighting for the people and fighting and upholding what the true values of what those awards mean.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for that. So I want you to know that, I've gotten more from you in terms of what I bargained for. You've done well in terms of sharing your story. You've shared some of your successes, all of that. You share, a little bit of your vision, in terms of, where you see yourself 5 years and all of that. I'm now giving you the opportunity to share any last minute thing you would like to share before we wrap it up. But do know that we are forever grateful that you took time. You're not even in the city right now. You're elsewhere, but you made the time to be on the Dr. Narine Dat Show, and we very much appreciate it. I want you to know that your story definitely will inspire many, many people to really do a lot of self-reflection and say to themselves, you know what, look, there are better things out there. I can do this. They just have to hang on there really, really tight. Exactly what you've done. So take it away. Any last minute thing you would like to say, and then we will wrap it up.
So, one of the things that I am doing is I do, and I'm offering free supports and mental health services and supports to people that are wanting to. Can you hear me, first of all?
I can hear you. Continue on. I can hear you nice and clear.
I am offering supports to individuals who want to learn how to overcome adversity and stuff like that. I'm here, and I will always be here. There is in my bio of my social media, I'm verified on Instagram and Facebook. So Facebook, Tanner Bergsma Global is my username. Instagram, Tanner EV Bergsma, and TikTok is Tanner EV Bergsma. Keep up to date with what I do, but in the profiles, you'll see a link tree. Click on that, and you'll be able to see two of my top links. If you click on the mental health supports, if you know anyone that is struggling, that needs genuine help, I am here. And you can have them submit a request. I do every Monday. I make myself available. So please, if you know somebody that's struggling, I can help them. I may not always be able to have the results that is promised, because it takes both ends. I'm willing to fight for them if they're willing to fight for themselves. But I am there. If you need help with life coaching and advice and stuff like that, or people that are going through life right now, and especially in this time of year and in our generations, they're, as a troubled teen that once was, and I went through everything that I went through in my life and navigating where I am now. I know a lot of people are looking up to me. If your son, daughter, and or anyone that you know as a young individual or student is struggling, and that they are looking for somebody to look up to, I am willing to be there for life coaching and stuff like that. You can also find that link in my bio. Ultimately, at the end of the day, my last word of advice: just be yourself. Love yourself. Learn to let go of what you can control, and learn to grasp onto what you can do. Remember the true meaning of life, because it's not things. When you can remember those things, you don't need to be angry. You don't need to be hurt. You can be angry in terms of what's going on in the world, absolutely, because anger leads to leads to change. But remember what your soul mission is at the end of the day: to make the world a better place. And don't lose sight of that. Learn to love yourself. And I think that's pretty much it. And keep up to date. Follow me on social media, because I've got a lot of upcoming new releases, projects, positive messages, protests. Oh, I'm full of action. So keep up to date with what I'm doing, because I can guarantee you'll be in for a roller coaster of a good ride. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to also remind folks that we do the Dr. Narine Dat Show weekly on Sundays, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Ontario, New York time. So something to keep in mind. Coincidentally, our show a week from now is another white man. And so He actually, he was born and raised in the United States, as I understand it, but currently he is in Ghana, where I was born and raised. He's a social media influencer, and so we look forward to having him on here. We'll be asking him as to, to share with us, his journey, in Ghana and to, get his view and things and all of that, which is awesome. So you do not want to miss that one. Here in the Dr. Narine Dat Show, as you would know, we are very diverse and very inclusive. So we basically have, everyday people, we have politicians, we talk about mental health. I'm glad that our guest here tonight, Tanner, talk a little bit about mental health because this month happens to be Mental Health Month, and it's so important for us to, to be conscious of these things, right? So that it is that. So, my dear fellow listeners and viewers, as we are officially approaching the end of tonight's program, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to the Dr. Narine Dat Show. On behalf of myself and our brilliant guest here tonight, Tanner, both of us would like to join together and wish you a great today and even a better tomorrow. We'll see you again next time.